Welcome back, everybody, to the Canadian Fast Break. Of course, Jeremy Russo here, joined alongside Geono. Brady, unfortunately, off this evening as well, too. We are covering for him, but nonetheless, just a quick preface there. We are back for episode 10, and my goodness, are we ready to start talking about everything? And maybe myself personally, I'm gonna let you guys know that I was very wrong, and we'll get into that pretty soon, but. Geono, I just want to check in with you. It's now past round two of the postseason for CBL 2026 postseason. And yeah, how are we feeling heading into the finals?
I feel like we got pretty much a dream finals matchup. One that includes Xavier Moon is never going to be a dull finals. So honestly, this was a really exciting, playoff Saturday. Really early basketball. I know, I know it was I think it was 11 a.m. your time, or maybe 10 a.m. your time, 11 mine. That was a really, really early time to be playing basketball, but nonetheless, really, really great opportunity to have that on TSN, and I believe was on main CBC too.
CBC too.
So,
So,
those are some
those are some really
really
good
good games of
games of
basketball.
basketball.
Overall, though, this was just
This was
a
just
beautiful, beautiful stretch of conference final play because there was some really, really there was a really big upset in my opinion. There was an upset in in the West that I think we got to talk about.
Yeah, no, that's for sure, and we'll definitely be getting to that. Let's start with the first game of the morning, I guess, for me at 10 a.m. bright and early for a lot of people as well too. Niagara River Lions taking on the
Hmm.
Brampton Honey Badgers, and of course, heading into this, Niagara on a hill on a mountain of momentum after defeating the 20-4 Scarborough Shooting Stars. They enter this game with Khalil Maad probably looking like his best, probably feeling like his best as well too. And unfortunately, just the Niagara River Lions not able to capitalize. I was watching the
Yeah,
game, and personally, Jono, I thought that it was going to be a similar notion. You know, they're trailing
yeah,
behind the Scarborough Shooting Stars a little bit in that first round. It kind of looked the similar sense now,
yeah,
and yeah, unfortunately, it kind of came down to the beginning and tail end of the game, and
yeah.
Niagara unfortunately losing out 91-81.
Yeah, that was a beautiful game. I think, to be honest with you, Niagara probably played the best out of three quarters of that one, in my opinion. Like they looked like the better team. To be honest with you, for most of the night, I was a little bit shocked and a little bit worried. Obviously, I picked Brampton to make it to the finals. You and Brady were Team Niagara, so I mean, like, obviously, I'm pretty happy with the result here, just based off my predictions staying right. But I think this was just a game where I was looking at it and I was being like, are we seriously, like, I thought back to when we were talking in the season about, like just Khalil Maad just coming back and us being like, it's over. It's not going to be a 3P. We thought Scarborough's too much. We thought Brampton's doing too good. We thought Ottawa and Montreal are just doing too good. And we didn't even think Niagara was going to make the playoffs. Now, they barely did, so just by, a very slim margin, they made it. But you look at it and you could say, if, man, they maybe hit five more buckets and they had chances, like, this could be the Niagara River Lions going off to play, in Winnipeg. And I think there was a lot to really like about Brampton's game as well. Like Trenton Flowers and Sean East II combined for 42 points. Like, I know you've been singing his praises and I've been singing Sean East II's praises, but what did you kind of like about Brampton? Like, I think, to be honest with you, it's really them. I know people talk about them being by committee. I'm like, I really think it runs through them. I think they're the guys that you look to no matter what to be able to get the job done, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I was going to allude to that as well too. Easton Flowers on the court, they're just this offensive drive. They have that
Yeah.
hustle in them, and like arguably, you could look towards the regular season where Niagara played Brampton, and they had their number in the regular season. But both
Yeah.
of those games was because East didn't play in either one of them, right? So
Yeah.
I think that definitely has a contributing factor into maybe why the Niagara River Lions were caught off guard, but like functioning together, they're dangerous. That you
Yeah.
can't rule them out on the court, and I think they did an excellent example in displaying that.
Yeah, and I agree with that too. Like, I thought the biggest thing again with the first round was that Sean East II just absolutely demolished any of Ottawa's defense. Like, they had no chance of stopping him, and I knew Niagara was really good on defense this year, and I wondered how that was going to kind of adapt to Sean East II. Really, it just meant that he had to spread the ball out a little bit more. He wasn't the only guy taking a lot of shots. I really liked what they were able to do and be a little bit more, dynamic. But man, I will tell you, I thought it was going to be. I think I remember writing down the final score prediction. I thought it was going to be 88-85 for Brampton. So pretty close, pretty close. Not as close, but pretty close. I think that was a really good just eyeball test to be like, okay, Brampton may not have been the better team, but they came out with the win. And sometimes you just need to hang around, like what Ottawa did, like on Thursday night. You don't need to be the best team through all four quarters. You just need to be the better team at the end, and you need to be able to just linger. And I liked what Brampton was able to do there. They lingered around probably a little bit longer than what Niagara probably wanted. And then all of a sudden you start looking and it's like, wow, this lead's turning. And I really thought there was going to be a good chance that Niagara was actually going to win this thing. But man, it would have been an insane feat to be, talking Niagara, like to go to 3 consecutive finals. But to be honest with you, I just don't think they had enough outside of Khalil Maud. I want to throw it over to you to get your thoughts on that one because I have something, but I want to hear your thoughts. Anything you have left to say on Brampton, and then if we want, we can kind of talk about Niagara.
Yeah, you kind of set me up perfectly there. You laid me up. I wanted to kind of allude to, that duo of Sean East and Trenton Flowers because they have this fantastic thing going, and then you kind of look at Niagara at the same time, and you have Khalil Ahmad on the court, but who is that second person for Niagara, right? So
Yeah,
we're kind of having that been putting up into the air, I guess, for this season, and I think right now, at least in postseason, that guy that was emerging himself into that title was Nathan Kayo. And I
yeah,
think he did an excellent job, in trying to showcase and step up. I would say that he's not as explosive as Trenton
yeah,
Flowers, but he does have more experience,
yeah,
right? So I think that veteranship also adds to the lineup as well too. But I think just that whole dynamic duo of who's going to step up with Ahmad, I feel like something was missing in Niagara's gameplay, and if that was
yeah,
a secondary elite, like individual on the roster, I feel like that obviously would have supported Ahmad, and just like me and Brady talked about earlier this season as well too, it's just about one big machine, and a
yeah,
mod's just one little gear, right? And if there's a kink in the machine, if it's not oiled well, something's gonna break. And the basketball team is the team. It is a
yeah.
machine, and unfortunately, with a mod getting overused, something didn't work. There's a kink in the armor, and
Yeah.
yeah, they were left looking for their second person.
Yeah. And I feel like that was the difference tonight. Like you look at what you have East there with Trenton Flowers. Now, it would be interesting to see you you take away Trenton Flowers. What does this game do? But I really was wondering, like, like where was Niagara gonna go? Right? Like you've seen again, Khalil Ahmad can just take over a game at any point. But really the like basketball games are not won because one guy can just, go up the court and score. You have to be able to pass. You need to be able to do things like be a decoy. You need to be able to go anywhere. And like what I remembered the night before too from Thursday was that like that was the mantra. Like it was 17. Like I'm just pulling it up here. Like Khalil Ahmad scored 17. Nathan Kyle scored 16, and then Kyle Vanelli's, I'm going to butcher that name, but it's 13 points. Like, this was not a deep scoring team the entire season. And you wondered about where that was going to pop and where that was going to change. I do think, like, again, like, you probably got what you expected out of Kyle, right? At 16, 13 points, like, that's right around where you're going to expect him to be. This is why I think a lot of people were a little bit uneasy about saying, "Oh, Niagara is going to win the championship." But to be honest with you, like you can see how well Khalil Ahmad does in these situations. It's just more of a fact of saying, "Hey, like where does when the ball is not in Ahmad's hands, who's going to go score?" And to be honest with you, I don't think they did a good enough job of that. And I don't think that that's necessarily like to say, "Oh, this team isn't, a great team and that's on the players." Sometimes you just need to find that role. Like everybody on the team has a role, and obviously Khalil Ahmad has that scorer's role. But wrapping this up, like I just think they needed another score, and they never got that throughout the entire season. But really, it's those types of plays and moments that can end a season. And I think credit to Niagara, they did a really really good job to be able to get to this point of the season after being like again it was like 5 and something. Like they were not in a good spot. I think they were 5-9 at one point. So being able to be here kind of tipped their cap, but you also tipped the cap to Brampton.
Yeah, I had one of my favorite quotes I heard today was watching the Niagara River Lions game, and it was a mod. It was saying basically he alluded to that target score time is like playground hoops, and it feels like
Yeah,
next point wins.
that's a
So
good point.
I definitely do feel like Niagara came out with the urgency. They recognized that they were trailing, and
Yeah,
unfortunately, it's just a matter of not converting and not being able to get it done. But we do
yeah,
wish the Niagara River Lions the best next season as well too. I'm sure they're going to
yeah,
be no stranger to playoff contention.
yeah. I like that. You want to flip over to Vancouver? We'll go out west. We'll wrap it up with the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah, let's do that. My second
Okay.
favorite quote of the week came from Tyrese Samuel, and I'm gonna butcher it too, but oh yeah, he said we're Hulk, we're Superman, we're Spider-Man, we're everything, we're Marvel.
We're
After
Marvel. I remember
the
that. Yeah,
round one win, and that was just such a quotable quote, I guess. It's
yeah,
memorable. It seems like the energy was bumping after
yeah,
inside Vancouver, and unfortunately, the Bandits not able to do it against the Winnipeg Sea Bears in the Western Conference Final, excuse me. Losing 96 to 107 despite Teddy bucketless. And this one is
yeah,
something that definitely caught all three of us off guard, Giano.
yeah,
But let's start with being without Teddy Allen. We knew that this was going to be a big factor. We
yeah.
thought that this was going to, put the Sea Bears at a disadvantage, and obviously this was not the case.
Yeah. I mean, it started with Xavier Moon, and I remember because Jeff, our Vancouver insider, posted on Twitter a little bit about Moon's post game, and he talked about like, I'm paraphrasing here, like, so don't take it as straight up fact, but like he mentioned the fact of like, this is who I am. I've led teams before. And I like I said, I think we talked about it. Like we understood Xavier Moon is the greatest CBL player in history, right? It was more the timing of when he got to Winnipeg, the time he's been out of the CBL, the time it took from the time his winter league ended and when this one picked up to where it's like, can he kind of establish that role? I think he did a great job, and we saw it really on that game. I think it was the one where Teddy dropped like 4 points, and Moon went off for like 29, and that was really the thing for me to be like, okay, like it's gonna be there. But don't get me wrong, there was going to be a challenge of saying Teddy's not going to be there. What happens now? And it's not to say Xavier Moon can't lead a team by himself. It's just more of what does the team react to, right? How does somebody step into that void so quickly and how do they adapt with that? You probably have the best guy in the league to be able to do that with Xavier Moon, but nonetheless, it was going to be a challenge. So I think for me, like credit to Winnipeg for being able to do that against Saskatoon. They also lost Jeremiah Tillman Jr. and Emmanuel Cott. Like those are two really big pieces that they lost going into that Mamba game. They had to quickly turn on their feet and say, "We got to get guys into the lineup. We got to get you into a new role." And they did that. Like Simon Hildebrandt tonight put up 24. Like we saw that last game with Jelani Watson Gale, like putting up 27. This was not necessarily going to be okay, who's the second star? You knew who that would be. This time it was wide open. And to be honest with you, I think I called Winnipeg the most complete team back like 2 months ago. And I stood by that, but I said it was going to be a problem. And to be honest with you, it was. They went through the adversity, but they proved again that their depth was there. And I really think that's what saved them tonight.
Yeah, that's the key word right there is depth. And you mentioned Emmanuel Koft and Tillman Jr. not being there, and that is
Yeah.
the nail on the hammer because again, like you alluded to, it showcases their depth. And you mentioned Simon Hildebrandt, and like what an outstanding performance from himself, shooting
Yeah.
4 8 50% 3-point field goal percentage. Like
Yeah.
I mean, just one of those guys. I'm staring down, making some notes at the game, looking back up, and I'm looking at the screen, and then there's Hildebrandt, sinking another three, and it's just, yeah, it was hard not to notice him up there. But again, it's that next man up mentality for the Sea Bears, and I think they've had a really strong sense of that throughout the whole season so far. So I don't think it
Yeah.
was a stranger to them during the postseason.
Yeah. Well, like the other thing I wanted to touch on too, like obviously Winnipeg, we knew was probably going to be at a little bit of a disadvantage of just figuring things out, right? Like that's the big thing is just how do you figure out lineup changes in literally when your season's on the line? Because there's no margin for error. You got to figure that out really quickly. And I really think that that's a real tip of the cap to Winnipeg because, being able to do that is really a coaching thing. And I think that's just the biggest part of figuring out those rotations. So credit to them, but flipping it over to probably where a lot of people want to talk about it, it's Vancouver. Like if there was going to be a year that the Vancouver Bandits were going to push through, you felt like it was going to be this one. You finish at the top of the West again. You look at what Winnipeg was dealing with, your number one competitor losing their duo partner. You kind of thought this is it. This is the time the doors have aligned, the stars have aligned, the doors open, you got to go do it. And they couldn't do it again. And to be honest with you, I don't know if it's like I don't think it's a curse. I just think sometimes things don't go your way. And whatever it is, like I look at this box score and I'm like, okay, who didn't show up tonight? There's really two people that stick out in my opinion the most. One of those is Tyrese Samuel, and I know he's a part of the Avengers, and maybe that is what the next mentality of the Vancouver Bandits is. Maybe that team's called the Avengers, right? And maybe they get Tavion Dunmartin, right? And maybe they steal somebody else really big, and they go off, right? But I think the bigger part here was just like I can't see you being in the biggest game of the season and put up 9 points. Would have liked to see a little bit more. Again, I don't expect Tyrese Samuel to put up 20, 25, 30, but it would have been a little bit nice to see a little bit more usage for him. Obviously, like guys like Tevin Brown stepped up again, Shamar Givens, like these guys moved the ball really well. I really liked what I saw out of them. Mitch Creek again had 19 and he almost played 40 points, like at 40 minutes. Like he was all over the place. The other guy was Michael Mulder. 1 of 5 from 3 in like 5 points. Like again, deep team, there's not going to be a lot of touches, but you were the number one guy off the bench. And to be honest with you, he's stepped up a lot down the stretch. I look at those two guys to be like, maybe if you get five points from each of them, again, that changes the game. That you're within a point there. And I'm like, I don't know. And that wouldn't, I don't think that's unreasonable to ask. Like, that's 10 points from Michael Mulder and 14 from Tyrese Samuel. That felt achievable, but what did you think of Vancouver? Because this is a team that was projected to go far, but at the end of the day, again, they're stuck with the same result they've had for the past few years.
Yeah, they've kind of been dealing with, rotating issues throughout the season, but I think nonetheless heading into the postseason that they were kind of able to push that all the way. But
Yeah,
at the same time, again, I'm looking at the box score as well too, and even the bench points. I mean,
yeah,
Winnipeg had 1 point less off of the bench, so it
yeah,
wasn't even a matter of like maybe if you want to say depth, right? We can use that as an element of discussion, but at the same time, like their superstars were the ones that stepped up and showed themselves on the court, and
yeah,
unfortunately, that just again wasn't the case for Tyrese Samuel, Michael Mulder. I would have loved to see something even a little bit more from Joyner. He had a
yeah,
quiet night, right?
yeah,
So just those guys that you look to when things aren't going your way, and it's kind of like now things aren't going the way.
yeah,
Now who are we going to look to because those guys aren't stepping up, and it's kind of just you're put into this loop of okay, what are we going to do? We're trailing, and we
yeah,
need to fix something really quick. And I think at
yeah,
some point of that game, the Bandits were kind of stuck, playing catch up, and maybe that seed of doubt was planted into their
yeah,
mind as that fourth quarter really stepped away from them. But yeah, it's an unfortunate turn of events. Like you said, it's kind of like that Western class narrative, I guess, for the Bandits. And you're in such a good postseason position. You fight for that first seed, and I just think it's a gut wrenching feeling for the Bandits. And we
yeah,
know that they're able to get back there. They are a team that's comfortable with pushing themselves back into postseason seeding. But yeah, just it's so unfortunate that things don't click when you think that you have a season that is phenomenal, going phenomenal. Big
yeah,
shout out to Mitch Creek, Givens, Samuel, everyone for stepping up, and the Bandits as a whole, great
yeah.
organization, and yeah, I just can't wait to see what they do next season.
Yeah, and I think the important part too here is context. Like any team, like again, you think about the Mamba, you think about the Singers who are sitting at home right now, right? They're out of the playoffs. If you would like switch spots with those teams, like making it to the conference finals is not a loss by any means. What the bigger part of Vancouver is that Vancouver is a franchise that has had really good regular seasons. They've just never been able to put them all together, right? And with the ultimate goal. Like, I think a lot about what Billy Beane said, right? In Moneyball, right? If you don't win the last game of the season, nobody cares. And in the bigger picture, that's not entirely true, but also when people look up at the rafters that's how they judge how successful your franchise has been, right? And that's just the way sports works. They look at the rings. And as a franchise, you kind of need to look at that to say, listen, this is how we establish who's the best, right? That's how you determine a champion. I feel bad for Vancouver because I really don't know. You can't always keep counting on like these situations to align and to be able to get them. Like sometimes you're going to get lucky. Sometimes you're going to be like, hey, we just, the West was really stacked this year. And it is like this is a situation where, again, I don't think anybody expected Xavier Moon to come back after last year. I don't think many people expected him to ever play in the CBL again. So when this kind of happened, like this felt like it was Vancouver's. I felt like they were the better team in over Winnipeg down the stretch. They proved it. They beat them for the first seed, but man, something happened. I don't know, if you want to attribute it to just, more practice and a little bit more factoring in like, okay, maybe Winnipeg really went into the film room there, but something happened and Winnipeg adapted. But that's why they're moving on, man. That's why they're moving on. And it's a game of inches, and it's whoever makes the least amount of mistakes. And the guys who can perform in the just a slight bit better and be a little bit more quicker and make the right decision by one or two plays. Those are the guys that are the elites, man, and make it in. And one thing I want to add into here too before we move on, like the points in the paint was 42-26 for Vancouver, which is again a little bit concerning about like, what do you mean Tyrese Samuel did not get more of those points? That was a little bit shocking for me. Again, I think we're kind of we kind of talked about everything about, but that was just shocking to me, right? To be able to think
Yeah.
that Tyrese Samuel got like 9 points and probably all 9 were in there. I don't know. I just thought maybe, if they were dominating the paint that much, it would probably have looked like at least high teens for Tyrese Samuel.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I know we kind of mentioned off camera too the last couple of days watching the playoffs. It would be such a different scenario if it was a best of three in the first and
Mm-hmm.
second and third. And I think even last episode we were kind of alluding to that as well too. And
Yeah.
it's so hard with scheduling, but you have to think like if this
Yeah.
was, the best of the West, best of three, does that change the outcome? And I think that Vancouver, dealing with so many adversities throughout the season, I
Yeah.
think they would have found a way to at least, get one underneath their belt, and then,
I agree.
who knows, that third game is up in the air. But I do think that, yeah, if a different scenario, obviously, I think they definitely would have had another opportunity to capitalize. It's just that's not the case. That's not how the playoffs work. It's a new
Yeah.
format this year, and yeah, now we are headed to the finals.
Yeah. No, and I agree with that. I think if we've learned anything from this, like as much as single elimination gives us like that Scarborough upset, I think there's something to be said about like just protecting the seeds in the regular season. It's something to think about. I would even be fine with it in the second round. Like I think the first round chaos is kind of cool, but at the same time, I also feel like we need more playoff basketball. Like to be able to say we only have 10 or 13 days of like real playoff basketball. And again, you're not playing on all of those. You're playing 3 days, 4 or 5 at most, right? Like that's not a whole lot of playoff basketball. It feels like we build, and then it's over in an instant. And that's kind of just like the situation with the summer schedule. At a certain point, you can't hold guys too much longer because they're going to start leaving for their winter camps, and I think that's acceptable. You're not going to tell somebody, hey, you can't do that. It's just not where the CBL is right now. But I do wonder, I'm like, they got to think about it. I'm sure people have thought about it at the CBL to be like, we would like to get to that point. I think depending on how well the ratings do in the finals too, this is me speculating, like maybe that does improve the chances of that happening. Because obviously this is the first time they've done a multi-game, series for the championship. So we'll see how all that ends up. But do we want to get right into our championship picks? We can kind of wrap this puppy up.
Yeah, let's do it. I guess heading into the finals, game one set for August 12th,
Yeah.
7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And of course, Winnipeg Sea Bears taking on the Brampton Honey Badgers. Brampton is the lower seed in this, so they will be hosting game one, and then game two hosted by the Winnipeg Sea Bears at the Canada Life Center, and then of course game three if needed. This was not in my predictions, my brackets. It's completely flipped. Yeah, so I guess just first impressions, Geono. What are you thinking about this final?
I think I'm really happy about it because, to be honest with you, I think I pretty much went back and forth on Winnipeg Brampton and Vancouver a real lot within the past, like the entire season. I think I did say Winnipeg was my championship pick at some point in the season. I also said that about Brampton. So I am kind of really torn, but this is going to be an exciting finals. Xavier Moon up against Shawnee II. I really don't know who has the edge here. On paper, it really feels like it's the Sea Bears. But at the same time, again, it's a 3-game series, and we've never seen this before. You can be really good in game 1, but if you can't be that good again in game 2 and game 3, the other team's going to win, right? And so this is where I'm really interested. I think for me, I'm going to go Winnipeg. And I think they're going to do it in 3. I don't see how. I really don't think there's going to be a sweep. Either way, I don't think Brampton's going to be able to get a sweep in. I think Winnipeg's a little bit more deep. Like, I think they're deeper. I think Brampton show that they're vulnerable a little bit against Niagara. Winnipeg really just, I don't know. They seem like it feels like it's a Winnipeg one. And it just feels like it's lining up. Again, you think about Teddy Allen not being there. Like, I just imagine, also what that can mean for the locker room to be able to be like, we're going to go win it for Teddy, right? Like, we're going to go win it for Teddy. I'm sure Xavier Moon wants number 3 for his championship, right? I don't think that's out of the question at all. So, I think there's a lot of great stuff there. And again, who better than to have the guy who has 2 CBL championships to his name already going into a 3-game series? I think really the odds stack towards the Sea Bears, but I think the Shawnee's Trenton Flowers thing just kind of throws you off to be like, if they combine for 50, 60 points, there's a chance.
That's why my opinion's so up in the air right now. Like, you see Winnipeg on the roll, and
Yeah.
I honestly want to give them more credit for, getting rid of the first seed. Like, that's momentum to move off of. And unfortunately, similar sense to Niagara, they weren't able to, continue on with that motion. But yeah, I think the Sea Bears are riding as high as they can be, right?
Yeah.
Like, you just defeated your rivals, your opponents, and now you have
Yeah.
some glimmer of hope. But I do think it's poetic, that in some sense the second seed of both conferences are
Yeah.
able to squeeze them in. It's a tale of telling of, how this league changes, and it keeps us on our toes, even as, media speaking to our listeners. We want to give you guys the best information, and everything
Yeah.
changes so quickly. So we're
Does.
always trying to be on it. But yeah, it just goes to show how this league is. We love it. We absolutely love it.
Yeah.
There's so much entertainment that follows with it, so much news. And yeah, it's going to be a fantastic matchup. I can't wait. I really
I
can't
agree.
wait. I have to allude to the Sea Bears taking it. Maybe Brampton. I could
Yeah.
see definitely Brampton squeezing it at home, and then maybe the Sea Bears, kind of wrapping it up back in
Yeah.
Canada Life Center, because that's a high pressure environment. But
It is.
I think that'd be good for the community as well, to all your fans backing you up.
Yeah, and that's the big thing too. Is I'm interested to see the flip, right? Like, how does it flip from Wednesday in Brampton to be like, okay, we're here to. I believe the Sea Bears went 8-1 or 8-2, something like that on home court. I remember when we were looking at the Vancouver series. That's why I was thinking like it's Winnipeg's to lose. I really am wondering just how good they can play there. But yeah, I think yeah. So we're in agreement. I got Winnipeg in 3. Are you going Winnipeg in 3 too?
Yeah, I'm gonna say Winnipeg in 3-2. I'm
Okay.
not ruling out Trenton Flowers just
Yeah,
yet.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
totally fair, and I think we're onto something there. But again, confirmation bias. We're gonna think we're right. But yeah, I think that'd be a great one. I'm excited to see this. Like, this is gonna be it's gonna be cinema, man. And if we really like how Game 3, if that's even a thing that's there, like, I'm gonna be ecstatic, and I think it's really gonna give us a good taste of what the playoffs could look like if they go to its best of 3. But nonetheless, obviously, I think that's a really good place to kind of wrap it up. I don't know who Brady would lean to. I feel like he'd probably lean to the Sea Bears. Not gonna lie, I think we'll have to ask him the next time he's on. But you know what? If I had to envision and enter the mind of Brady Locke, I think he would say it's gonna be like Winnipeg in 2. And I think he'd have a really long speech like he did for the Niagara one, maybe talking, in the person of Xavier Moon. in the locker room. But honestly, I think Brady would be a Winnipeg and 2 guy. But nonetheless, I think that's a good place to kind of wrap things up.
Yeah, I was just gonna say before we finish things up that's what I was hearing in my head is his whole
Yeah.
2 minute speech of listing off everything that happened. Maybe that's what the teams need. Maybe that's part of their pregame ritual.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why Niagara had things rolling there. But
No kidding. No kidding.
yeah, yeah.
I like
Nonetheless,
it.
yeah, that was a great talk. Thank you, everybody, for listening once again, tuning into episode 10 of the Canadian Fast Break. Stay tuned, of course, next week, August 15th, 3:30 Eastern Time. Of course, round 2, I guess, of the, or game 2, excuse me, of the finals. Game 1 kicking off August 12th. We will be here. We will continue with the episodes, catching you guys up on all the games, new information, new headlines. But until then, we will see you shortly for the final time. This evening, my name is Jeremy Russo, joined alongside Aloisio, and you're listening to the Canadian Fast Break.